The ocean looks calm from above. From the surface, it appears gentle, predictable, almost friendly. Sunlight scatters across moving waves. The horizon feels endless, open, safe. Ships pass, birds glide. Life behaves the way we expect it to. But this calm is a lie, because the ocean is not flat. It is vertical.
Welcome to OCEYRIX, where we explore the wonders of the ocean and its impact on our lives.
And beneath that thin, shimmering surface lies a world stacked in layers, each one darker, heavier, and more hostile than the last. A world where pressure does not just exist, it dominates. As we begin our descent, the light changes first. Colors fade, reds disappear, then oranges, then yellows. The water shifts from blue to indigo, from indigo to black. The sun, so powerful above, loses its grip shockingly fast. Within minutes, the surface feels impossibly far away, and with every meter we sink, something invisible begins to build. Pressure. At 10 meters below the surface, the weight of the ocean doubles. At 100 meters, it becomes crushing. At 1,000 meters, it reaches levels that would instantly collapse lungs, shatter bones, and rupture blood vessels. Pressure is not dramatic like a predator. It does not chase. It does not attack. It simply presses, relentlessly, from every direction, without pause. This is where the story truly begins. Because for most life on Earth, pressure is an enemy. On land, gravity pulls downward. Our skeletons resist it. Our muscles fight it. Our bodies are built around structure, rigid frames holding soft systems in place. But in the deep ocean, structure becomes a weakness. As we descend past the last traces of sunlight, the rules we live by begin to fracture. Here, air-filled spaces are dangerous. Rigid bones become liabilities. Hard shells crack instead of protect. Pressure finds every weakness. It squeezes gases until they vanish. It compresses cells. It warps molecules themselves. And for a long time, scientists believed this should make complex life impossible. Too extreme, too hostile, too crushing. Yet, life didn't retreat. It adapted, but not in the way we expected. Instead of becoming stronger, many deep-sea animals became softer. Instead of resisting pressure, they surrendered to it. Their bodies lost stiffness, their tissues loosened, their shapes began to change, and slowly, disturbingly, something happened. Animals stopped looking solid. As we continue downward, we encounter creatures that seem wrong at first glance. Fish whose faces sag like melted wax, bodies without sharp edges, forms that appear unfinished, half-formed, collapsing inward. They don't look injured, they don't look diseased, they look dissolved, as if the ocean itself is pulling them apart. This is where human intuition fails us, because our instincts are shaped by land, by gravity pulling in one direction, by air filling our lungs, by bones holding us upright. Down here, none of that matters. Down here, pressure is the architect, and pressure does not reward rigidity. It rewards flexibility. Inside these depths, evolution makes a brutal calculation. Any structure that resists pressure must be reinforced. Reinforcement costs energy. Energy is rare, so the ocean chooses another path. It removes the need to resist at all. Muscles thin, skeletons shrink or disappear entirely. Bodies fill with water instead of air. The result is an anatomy that looks alien to us. Gelatinous tissues, loose flowing forms, organs suspended rather than supported, not because these creatures are weak, but because they are perfectly matched to their environment. Pressure cannot crush what has no empty space to collapse. Pressure cannot not break what bends. And as pressure increases, this strategy becomes unavoidable. By the time we reach the deep zones, pressure is no longer just a force. It is a filter. Anything too rigid dies. Anything too dense wastes energy. Anything too structured snaps. Only the adaptable remain. This is why deep-sea animals often look like they're melting, not because they are falling apart, but because they have let go of shape altogether. Scientists still don't fully understand when exactly this transition occurs. At what depth does a skeleton become a liability? At what pressure does firmness become fatal? What we do know is this: every meter deeper pushes life closer to the edge of what biology should allow. And yet, it persists, not by becoming stronger, but by becoming stranger. As we descend further, the water grows colder, the darkness thickens, food becomes scarce, and pressure continues to rise. This raises a disturbing question. If pressure can reshape bodies this dramatically, what else does it change? What happens to nerves under constant compression, to senses, to perception itself? Do deep-sea animals experience the world the way we do, or has pressure rewritten that even? Scientists still don't know, because observing life under these conditions is brutally difficult. Submersibles crush, robots fail, instruments buckle. Even our technology struggles to survive where these creatures thrive. And when we do bring them to the surface, they change. Bodies collapse, forms distort. What looked stable below suddenly appears broken above, which leads to one of the greatest misunderstandings in deep-sea biology. We think these animals look wrong because we are seeing them in the wrong world. Up here, without pressure, they melt. Down there, they are whole. This realization forces us to confront something unsettling. Maybe solidity is not the natural state of life. Maybe it's just a surface condition. And maybe, deep beneath our feet, pressure hasn't destroyed life at all. It has revealed another way to exist. But pressure does more than soften bodies. As we continue our descent, it begins to do something far more disturbing. It starts to erase boundaries between inside and outside, between form and function, between organism and environment. And the deeper we go, the less life looks like something built, and the more it looks like something happening. As the descent continues, pressure stops being an abstract number and becomes a shaping force. Every meter downward adds weight, not just above, but from every direction at once. Unlike gravity, which pulls in a single line, pressure surrounds. It squeezes evenly, relentlessly, and without escape. For surface life, this kind of force would be fatal within moments. Lungs would collapse, blood vessels would rupture, cavities filled with air would implode. Yet in the deep ocean, life does not merely endure this force, it evolves around it. Early scientists assumed pressure would act like a universal barrier, an invisible wall beyond which complex organisms could not pass. But biology had other ideas. Instead of reinforcing bodies to fight pressure, evolution chose a quieter solution. Remove the things pressure can destroy. Air disappears first. Deep-sea creatures rarely contain gas-filled spaces. Swim bladders shrink or vanish entirely. Buoyancy is achieved not through trapped air, but through water itself. When the inside matches the outside, pressure loses its weapon. This is why deep-sea animals often appear soft, loose, even fragile. Their tissues contain large amounts of water held together by flexible proteins rather than rigid frameworks. Under pressure, these bodies do not collapse. They compress evenly, then return to form. To human eyes accustomed to hardness and structure, this softness looks wrong, unfinished, unstable. But in the deep ocean, it is the most stable design possible. Bones tell a similar story. On land, skeletons are essential. They resist gravity, anchor muscles, protect organs. But deep underwater, bones can become a liability. Calcium is scarce, energy is limited, and rigid structures resist pressure unevenly, creating points of failure. So many deep-sea species reduce their skeletons or replace bone with cartilage, flexible, bendable, forgiving. Some abandon internal support almost entirely. This transformation doesn't happen suddenly. There is no clear boundary where rigidity fails and softness takes over. Scientists still don't know exactly where that tipping point lies. At what depth does a skeleton become more dangerous than useful? At what pressure does firmness turn fatal? What we do know is that as depth increases, flexibility becomes less of an advantage and more of a requirement. Pressure also changes life at the smallest scales. Proteins behave differently when compressed. Cell membranes must remain fluid even under immense force. Enzymes, tiny molecular machines that drive life's chemistry, must continue working in conditions that would freeze or crush surface biology. Deep-sea organisms solve this by subtly altering their chemistry, adjusting fat content, protein structure, and molecular spacing in ways scientists are still struggling to fully understand. What emerges is a form of life shaped not by strength but by surrender, not by resistance but by acceptance. Pressure becomes less an enemy and more a constant companion, one that life learns to accommodate rather than oppose. And as bodies soften, blur, and flow, they begin to look less like objects built from parts and more like processes unfolding in water. As pressure continues to rise, something strange begins to happen to form itself. Shapes lose their sharpness, edges soften, symmetry becomes optional. In the deep ocean, looking unfinished is not a flaw, it is a feature. Many animals here appear as if gravity has melted them, pulling faces downward and smoothing away definition. Eyes droop, mouths sag, bodies seem to slump inward, as if struggling to hold themselves together. But nothing is collapsing, nothing is failing. These creatures are functioning exactly as intended. The illusion of melting comes from our expectations. On land, shape is everything. Form defines function. Legs are built for walking, fins for swimming, wings for flying. Structure is visible, purposeful, and rigid. In the deep sea, those visual rules collapse. Shape becomes fluid because the environment allows it to be. Without the need to support their own weight, many deep-sea animals no longer maintain fixed postures. They drift instead of stand. They hang instead of walk. Muscles shrink because constant movement is unnecessary. Energy is too valuable to waste on strength when time itself becomes abundant. Some species move so slowly that motion is almost imperceptible, a gentle ripple rather than a stroke. This slow existence reshapes anatomy. When movement is rare, muscles thin. When feeding opportunities are unpredictable, mouths enlarge. When encounters are few, bodies stretch and elongate to maximize chance. The result is a collection of forms that seem exaggerated, distorted, even surreal. Scientists still don't know how nervous systems adapt to this softness. Nerves must transmit signals through tissues that bend, stretch, and compress constantly. How does a signal maintain precision when the body has no fixed shape? How does coordination work when anatomy is always in flux? These questions remain largely unanswered, hidden behind the sheer difficulty of studying life at such depths. The deeper we go, the more obvious it becomes that shape itself is negotiable. Some creatures can alter their form in response to pressure, expanding and contracting as needed. Others appear almost amorphous, their boundaries unclear even under close observation. Where does the animal end and the water begin? In many cases, the line is blurred by design. This blurring is not accidental. It makes animals harder to see, harder to grasp, harder to injure. Predators slip past what they cannot define. Pressure passes through what it cannot break. In this world, clarity is vulnerability. Ambiguity is survival. What we are witnessing is not decay, but optimization. Bodies stripped of unnecessary rigidity. Life reduced to what is essential, and nothing more. And in doing so, the deep ocean challenges one of our most basic assumptions, that life must be solid to be real. No creature represents this misunderstanding more clearly than the blobfish. On the surface, it looks like a joke, its face drooping, its body collapsed into a shapeless mass. It has been called ugly, deformed, even tragic. But this image is a lie, created by pressure loss. In its natural environment, thousands of meters below the surface, the blobfish looks normal, balanced, buoyant. Its body is supported by the surrounding water, held in perfect equilibrium by immense pressure. There is no sagging, no collapse, no melting. The creature exists exactly as evolution designed it to. The problem begins when it is brought upward. As pressure decreases rapidly, the delicate balance is destroyed. Without the crushing weight of the ocean to hold it together, the blobfish's tissues lose support. Gravity takes over. The body slumps. The face droops. What we see is not the animal's true form, but its failure to survive our world. This pattern repeats across deep-sea biology. Many creatures appear melted only when removed from pressure. Down below, they are whole. Up here, they fall apart, which raises an uncomfortable truth. Our perception of these animals is fundamentally flawed. We are judging deep-sea life through surface world rules. Scientists still struggle with this problem. Observing animals in their native pressure environment is incredibly difficult. Submersibles must withstand forces that crush steel. Cameras malfunction, instruments fail, and when specimens are retrieved, their bodies transform before meaningful study can begin. As a result, much of what we think we know about deep-sea anatomy may be incomplete or wrong. How many species look entirely different at depth? How many behaviors vanish the moment pressure is lost? How many forms we label as strange are simply out of context? The blobfish is not an exception. It is a warning. In the deepest zones, softness becomes strength. Bodies that bend survive impacts that would shatter rigid frames. Gelatinous tissues absorb force instead of resisting it. Pressure flows through instead of breaking things apart. Some predators exploit this fully. They slip through narrow gaps. They expand and contract. They engulf prey rather than chase it. Movement becomes less about speed and more about inevitability, a slow, drifting presence that cannot be avoided. Others take softness further, becoming nearly transparent. Without pigment or hard edges, they dissolve visually into darkness. Organs float within clear tissue. Boundaries vanish. Predators see nothing. Prey disappears. Scientists still don't understand how these animals maintain internal organization. How does a body without rigidity keep systems aligned? How do organs remain functional when nothing appears fixed? The answers remain largely hidden, locked beneath kilometers of water. But one thing is clear: solidity is not essential for life. It is simply familiar. At the deepest depths, categories begin to fail. Fish that don't swim, animals without faces, organisms that defy classification. Life here is no longer built, it is occurring. Pressure erases the distinction between body and environment. Inside and outside blur. Form becomes temporary. Function becomes fluid. Life behaves less like an object and more like an event. This raises the strangest question of all. At what point does an animal stop being a thing and start being a process? In the deep sea, life does not pose, it does not harden, it flows. And maybe that is why it looks like it's melting, not because it is breaking down, but because it has gone somewhere we are not built to follow.